Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending our Stanley Elementary School Parent Reopening Forum. I am Jennifer Hacker. I'm the principal at Stanley Elementary. And with me tonight is Erica Walther, our assistant principal. Our thoughts for this evening are really to answer any questions that you might have. Hopefully we'll have the answers. As you know, this pandemic, things are changing pretty rapidly, and we're trying to stay on top of things, but as things are changing, we're changing our course of action as well. So we're flying the plane as we're building it, but we're all working together, so that's actually really helpful. So I'm going to begin by sharing some slides with you. Here we go. So one of the things that we've been talking about, and we had some meetings with our staff, and we're talking about growth mindset, and that's something that we're going to need to really embrace this year. We don't know all the answers. We aren't going to know all the answers. We don't have a full plan yet. We have a good plan, but it's a work in progress. And the best way to handle that is kind of being positive about it. I know things are going to be hard, but working together and making sure that we're on the same page and letting kids know that they're safe and they're happy and they're healthy, that we'll get through this together. So just kind of thinking about those things. And lastly, everything is temporary. This isn't going to last forever, but for right now, we have to kind of shift gears, and this is the way we need to run school. So we look forward to working with all of you and playing on the same team together. Our Stanley staff has committed to doing a lot of things this year, and we're really hoping that this Stanley commitment will be shared by families as well. So I'm going to read it to you because it's a little hard to read, but it says, as a school, we commit ourselves to leading the way for students and each other in a way that cultivates trust, accountability, and while relentlessly pursuing equity and opportunity for every child in our school. And these are some of the ways that we're going to do this. So we hope that we can do that for you and for your family, and we can do this together. One of the most important things that we're really thinking about is being flexible, making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and one another, and just being kind and being open to maybe things not being as permanent as we want them to be, or that they're not exactly how we want school and this environment to be right now. But our hope is that we will get there eventually. And we can do that together. Just as a start, this is our first day of school in Waltham. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be the same first day for everybody. So I'm just kind of going to go through this. Again, I'll leave questions at the end if people have more questions about it. But this is for the first day for all students remotely is September 16th. So all students in grades 1 through 12 in Waltham schools online, and students in grades 2 through 12 who do not qualify to come to school in person based upon their English learner status or special education status. So also starting on September 16th will be students in grade 1 who have a last name before Lawson in the alphabet. We'll also have some special education students, as well as some substantially separate special education students as well. Alternate to that, students who have a last name that's after Lawson in grade 1 will begin their first day of school on September 21st. And kindergarten students before with the last name Lawson before Lawson will begin school on September 23rd. And any student after Lawson will begin their first day of school on September 29th. I know it's a little confusing. If you are not sure, you can reach out to us and we'll be able to help you figure those things out. Just wanted to kind of give you a peek into the classroom. This is not how they're normally set up. They're usually bright and vibrant and engaging. We took these pictures prior to staff coming back, so they will look a little bit more exciting when students arrive. But right now, this is what a kindergarten classroom looks like. The way the tables are set up, each student will have their own table, and they will be 6 feet apart head to head, and front to back and side to side. So that way kids are 6 feet, they're able to have their own space, and they're able to be safe distanced apart. Similarly, this is a first grade classroom. Different. The only thing that's different is the desks versus the tables. So students in grade one will have a their own desk. They will be 6 feet apart, head to head, and so that way students can be safely distanced. Some of the precautions that we have taken already. Our beautiful hallways that have been waxed have been taped off so that students and staff can remember to walk on one side of the hallway or the other. That way will help them to maintain a safe distance apart. And we have arrows as well on the floors, as you can see on the stairs. And even in things like the bathroom, we have some signage put up about reminding students and staff how to wash their hands, how long they need to do it for, trying reminding them to do it before and after using the facilities. And we've taped off the center sink to kind of make sure that students can keep a safe distance. Here we have the types of masks that we're asking students and staff to wear. On the left-hand side, you'll see what are appropriate masks for school and what guidelines that we have. The standard disposable mask, the surgical masks, cloth masks, or any of the N95s that do not have the vent or the respirator. The problem with those is that air droplets do come out of those N95 masks that do have if you see on the right-hand side, the yellow cap. They do allow droplets and germs to escape from that mask. So we're asking that students don't wear those masks. Neck gaiters have also been shown to increase transmission. So we're saying that that's probably not the best mask to have, and we're not allowing those at school either. Similarly to bandanas, because they're not closed on the bottom or they don't connect under the chin, that those also can allow air droplets to escape. Again, we're just trying to maintain the safest environment possible for students. Some of the protocols and procedures that we've put into place. I mean, we have a protocol and procedure for pretty much everything. Hand washing, how to clean spaces, how classrooms and bathrooms will be sanitized, what happens if a staff or a student is sick, how students will be arriving and dismissing, what will breakfast, lunch, and snack look like, recess and mask breaks, and how many people can come in and out of the building, and so many more things that we will share. We are creating a Stanley document that will go to families after Labor Day, most likely once it's translated. It will be shared with families, and it will give all of the specific things that will happen at Stanley. Most of these will come from the district procedures. Obviously, hand washing, sanitizing, those procedures are all something that the district is doing. I am going through this kind of quickly because I know that people have already watched the district forums and seen all these protocols and procedures. So I just want to make sure that I'm doing a quick overview, but then I'm going to give families an opportunity to ask questions so that we can be more specific to the needs of the people that are on this call. So food and lunch in schools, students who are in school will have a hot and cold lunch option, as well as a breakfast option. The image on the left is really for remote learners. We are going to be offering curbside meals for all the online learners and the remote students in grades 2 through 5. We are sharing, I know we did on our Facebook page, the family meal kit. And it's going to include for one student, it's going to be 5 days of breakfast and lunch meals. And the parents will be picking it up weekly. And it's also going to be offered at 3 different locations. I believe it's the middle schools and Whittemore Elementary School. And the school meal prices will apply. So I think it's $15 for one student's meals, 5 days of breakfast and 5 lunches. So as we get into more of the academic routines at school, this slide here is specifically for students who are fully remote in grades 2 through 5. This will also be a similar schedule for what the students who are in Waltham schools online will follow. we're trying to do things very similarly so that if children are able to come back, and we do get students that can come back in a hybrid model in grades 2 through 5, we're hoping that if we follow a similar schedule, that it will be an easy transition to be able to bring more students back. This is, again, an example of a schedule, and not necessarily the exact schedule that each teacher will have. So during the day, there'll be a morning meeting, a literacy, specialist block. Your breaks will be built in. The lunchtime will be built in, and math instruction will be also built in. For students who are hybrid, meaning they're coming into the building 1 week and then they're home for the next, this schedule is for the in-person week. As you can see, it's very similar to the schedule that the students in remote are receiving. This schedule, again, will be tailored to each classroom. During the literacy block in hybrid, there'll be whole group, there'll be small group, there'll be intervention, and with their embedded social studies and science. Same thing in the math block. It won't be 90 minutes necessarily straight. There'll be whole group and small group, intervention, and additional supports as needed when they're in the classroom. As we switch to the off week, so the week that the students are remote in the hybrid, you'll notice that the schedule is very similar. What's going to change is the times when and things that students are doing, as well as the mask break time. So for example, in the off week, they won't necessarily need a mask break because they'll be at home. And those will be the times that teachers will do a check-in with the classroom of students. So it'll be a synchronous check-in twice a day and a morning meeting as well. And the morning meeting will be for student goal setting, and they'll do kind of the task review of the day. Again, the literacy and math blocks are broken down into times, and these tasks that are going to be kind of given out will be given ahead of time. Teachers are planning in a 2-week block, and I'll get to that schedule in a minute. But these are kind of going to be independent completion of tasks that the teacher probably has either gone over with them in the in-person week or given them the resources and the ability with the instruction they've given them to be able to do these activities at home. All right, so here is an example of what our task calendars are going to look like. This is going to be for all students, whether they're in fully remote or if they're in both in a hybrid model. So the week 1 is where the teacher guided skill week. So teachers are going to provide links to class meetings, their topics, their assignments that students can access. So that's week 1 of the 2-week rotation, is really focused on the content and concept development and the things that students are going to need and to be able to do week 2, which would be the off week or the remote week. Again, students will get these task calendars ahead of time so that you'll see the 2-week rotation, so that parents will know before they're going to school on the hybrid week in school that they're going to see what they're going to be working on, and then know what they're going to be expected to work on when they're home in week 2. So that week 2 is really focused on completing those tasks to demonstrate the mastery of the concepts from week 1. Could be a project, could be a writing task, could be a multimedia demonstration to show mastery, could be a problem set that they have to bring back in to the teachers the next week. So it's just going to depend on what the topic is and what the concept is that kids are learning, and that will depend on what the project is for that week. So what are some things that you can do to get your child ready for school? Please, 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 please practice wearing masks for an extended period of time. That's really going to help us. We know it's not going to be easy for kids. I don't know if it's going to be that easy for adults either to be wearing it for 6+ hours a day. I'm in my office now. I'm not wearing a mask, but I'm by myself. And so I know that once staff and students start to come, I'll be wearing my mask all day. So I have been practicing, but we ask that you help practice with your student. Also, try and give them an understanding of what 6 feet of distance is and why it's important to do that, just so that they can kind of gauge and gather what that looks like and why do they have to be far away from their friends when they're in school. Maybe prepare a work and a study space in your house for students to use. It's always good to have a space where their work gets done that's different than the rest of the spaces so that they know that this is their time to do their schoolwork. A daily schedule to support that school day time and following that schedule would be really important as well. Definitely get them outside. Let them run around. Everybody needs it. I know my kids at home, even though they're a little bit older, they definitely require that outside time. And going outside and throwing the softball or kicking the soccer ball is definitely something that helps to help them get back on track when they need to be focused on school. Sleep is really important. So trying to get them back on those routines of school, early bedtimes, good breakfast, those can definitely help. And lastly, I would say one of the things that we've tried in our home, as much as frustrating it is with teenagers, I'm trying to remind them that school is really important and that it's really important for them to be on board. And I'm trying to stay positive so that they'll stay positive. So if I'm talking positively about school, they're hearing me, seeing that I'm glad that they're going back, and I'm glad that they're going to be safe, and I'm glad they're going to be able to see their friends and teachers. They're going to feel good about that too. So the more positive you are, the more positive your child will be, and they will definitely follow your lead. Kids always look to the adults and are often looking for us to kind of help them feel more safe. And so I think if we can do that together, we'll have a great school year. This is a part of our Waltham Public Schools website. We're building it now. I'm not sure if it's up and live yet, but everything you need to know about returning to school in Waltham, which I'm pretty sure is on there, this is where you can get that information. Mrs. Walther's really great about updating our Stanley admin Facebook page, as well as our PTO with any upcoming information. So please check those places. You can always email or call just to get any questions you might have for us. We'll be more than happy to help you with. So here is, and I laugh at everybody always asks for supply lists. So the supply list that we're asking you to send your students to school with this year is some patience, some flexibility, lots of deep breaths, calmness, humor, cooperation, encouragement, positivity, understanding, compassion, respect, and kindness. And I think that if we can bring all those to school, we certainly are going to have a great year. If we don't get to your questions tonight, which we have plenty of time to do so, our emails are up here on the slides, and you can email both of us or either of us, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. I try and keep up on my email, but they're getting longer each day. So, but we will get back to you, I promise. Just a little sign I saw somewhere, I forget where I saw it even, but this is just, let's try and be positive, and maybe if we think that this is going to be a great school year, maybe it will surprise us. Maybe we'll find some things out that we didn't think we could get out of school in a year of a pandemic. But again, if we stay positive and we work together, I think we can. So at this time, I am going to look in the chat for some questions. So if parents have questions, I know that Mrs. Walther is checking our chat for questions. I know that she says there's still nothing yet. So just trying to see, I'll give it a second. I hope it's working too. There's a Mrs. Walther saying that she hopes it's working. So if somebody wants to just type something into a box, even if they don't have a question, if they could just type something in so we know it's working, that would be great. Beth on the Lexicate end, I'm looking to see if she's texting me anything to say that there isn't any chats, but Mrs. Walther and I aren't seeing anything. Oh. Oh, good. Okay. So Mrs. Walther said they just started coming through. So specific times for the school day, 8:30 to 3 is going to be the school day for students in K through 5, whether they're hybrid or remote. I know special education students are coming at different times. I believe those times are 8:30 to 12:30, but I don't quote me on that. I have to double check those, but I'm not sure. Okay. Mrs. Walter, if you want to unmute yourself and read a question, you're more than welcome to do that if it's easier than typing it in. One of the questions is, why is preschool starting sooner? So preschool doesn't start until the 23rd. They are not starting sooner than kindergarten. Kindergarten and preschool are starting on the 23rd, depending on last names. Will information for pre-K parents be covered separately? I did not include the slide for pre-K in this presentation. I can have Mrs. Walther and I will post it on the admin page. So preschool is, oh, I see what you mean by preschool starting earlier. I'm sorry. Preschool is starting at 9 and not 9:15. The reason why we're starting at 9 is because we're cutting back on the days and times for students. We thought by pushing it back to 9 o'clock, it would give families a little bit longer in the classroom, since they're losing time on the other end in days. So that is why. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. I thought you meant earlier than the other students. Good question. When will we hear who our students' teachers will be? So let me backtrack a little bit and explain why you haven't heard yet. We just finished establishing Waltham Schools Online teaching staff yesterday. And so now we are looking at how many sections of classes we will have in our own buildings. And now we need to redo the class list. And we wanted to wait for teachers to be back to do so, because the last year's teachers have the best understanding of the students. And so it's really important to have their thoughts and opinions on that. So we're working on it. And then as of next week, I would say probably early next week, teachers will be reaching out to families either via email or by phone call to set up a meet and greet of some sort. Supplies from school. So I thought I heard this was going to happen. So supplies from school. So we are going to supply the supplies for students who are in school. We did send out a supply list in our communication this week to parents. We asked teachers to kind of highlight their top 5 school supplies for at-home learning, and that's what we're asking parents to provide. If you do need a copy of that and didn't have it, or didn't get it, we can send that out to you. You can just send us an email. I will also post that on the Facebook page as well, and we can probably get our digital learning teacher to put it up on our website as well. Will there be absolutely no contact between students at all times, or will students in one class be able to have physical contact with each other at some point? So that's a good question. So as you know, we are trying to, the CDC has said 6 feet of distance is the safest possible way to have students be back. That being said, they will be playing on the playground together, that the cohort in one classroom. So for example, if Mrs. Walther is my child's teacher, Mrs. Walther's class will be outside together. They'll be either in a section of the play area that they'll be playing in with with equipment, or they'll be on the structure, but those students will have an opportunity to play together. They just won't be able to take their masks off or be kind of touching things together at the same time. So we're trying to do that, to do it safely, and that's the decision that we've come to as far as how we can do that safely. Child can't make an online checking during the yes. So attendance will be taken during both remote and during the remote school week and the in-school week for hybrid, and then every day in the remote school week. So if students can't make an online check-in during their remote week, they'll be marked absent in the morning. So in the morning meeting time, that's the time that we're calling attendance time. Teachers will be taking attendance then. That's the time that they'll be marked absent. I would say though, it's important if your child has questions or your child needs help, that you should have them log in during those check-in times that we have scheduled. If we're noticing that, or a teacher is noticing that the child is not doing the work or isn't checking in frequently, they probably will reach out and ask for some guidance from parents to see what's going on, because we do want to make sure that kids are engaged and are checking in so that we know that they're on track where they need to be. If you don't have access to a computer while the kids are on a hybrid week, what do we do? So you can email. You can email me. I'm probably going to forward it along to our digital learning teacher, Mrs. Cox, or you can email her at KimberlyCox@walthampublicschools.org. She is going to start kind of coordinating the computer pieces, or the device pieces, I should say. Right now, we do not have any devices for kindergartners or first graders. Or preschoolers, I should say. We don't have any devices to give to those students. We're making priority is kids in grades 2 through 12. We have very limited left from the kind of give out of what we've gave out in the spring, and we've allowed students to keep those for the fall. As far as new devices, we should be getting some in soon. Keep your fingers crossed. We are. Obviously, as you can imagine, devices are a hot commodity right now, and they are at a premium. So we're hoping to get our devices delivered soon. And so as soon as we do, we'll be able to get them set up and deployed to families. So just get your name on a list so we'll know that you need one and we can get there. All right. So the pre-K schedule. So so let me talk a little bit about that. I don't want to not share my screen because this forum is new to me and I don't want to mess up by changing the slide option. So I'm going to tell you about it, but then I'll share it later. So as far as the preschool schedule, so if they're in a 3 or 4-year-old, like that used to be the AM, PM kind of sessions, those will be every day 9 to 12. Now, I say that the 3-year-olds are going to be Monday, Tuesday, and the 4-year-olds are going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they'll have 2 days and 3 days. 3-year-olds will have 2 days, and 4-year-olds will have 3 days. That being said, they'll be every other week by last name. So the first week cohort will be up through the last name Lawson. They'll come on Monday and Tuesday for 3-year-olds. And then the following week will be the cohort B, and the same will follow suit for the 4-year-olds Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The preschool, full day preschool, that is for students who are in the full day. That will be a hybrid model as well, A through Lawson, but they'll be every day 9 to 2:45. I think I got that right. If I didn't, I apologize. Thank you all for your shout outs and saying that we're doing a great job. You are all so flexible and so kind. We really are we're doing the best we can, and that's all that we're asking for everyone. We're all learning and figuring this out together. And I know that we really appreciate families being understanding and flexible. And so thank you for that. Will we find out how many children will be in each classroom for in-person learning? So I can tell you right now, from looking at my lists, there are, right now, I don't think there's a classroom that has more than 20 students. Actually, I know there's not. There's not a classroom that has more than 20 students. And there's not a classroom that has more than 12 students in one of the cohort models. That being said, there are some grade levels that have 6 students in a cohort, and there's some that have 9. I don't even think there's any that are at 12 yet, but there will not be more than 12 in a cohort. In remote, do students need to be in front of the computer the whole time from 8:30 to 3? Gosh, no, absolutely not. That is not an expectation. I can tell you that I've been in front of the computer since 6:30 this morning, and I am definitely ready to be done with it. So I can imagine how kids would be. No, that is not our expectation at all. Our we know that kids, we don't even ask kids to be on and in demand in the classroom all day long. We give them lots of breaks, we give them time to process, we give them time to talk with their friends about things and work on problems, and they'll be doing the same thing remotely. So no, the expectation will not be that they'll be in front of the computer all day long. For the remote week of first grade, are there only two teacher check ins total per day? So, for the first week of first grade, there will be three check ins, and they'll be that way every week, whether it's well, every remote week. There'll be a whole class meeting in the morning with the cohort, and then two check-ins per day. I do think that teachers are going to be reaching out, and I'm thinking that they're going to schedule a class meeting. That's kind of what we're recommending, but we will let you we'll let them talk to you guys about that as they're building their as we're building their class lists and their schedules in the next few weeks. How will I know if my child is assigned to attend in person or virtually? Why don't you email me, and I will let you know. How's that? What are the changes for entry and dismissal? TBD, more info to be communicated. So, yeah, so I actually know most of the changes. We haven't really specify. We're working on some of the dismissal plans as of right now, and where students will go for dismissal. But the arrival plans I can articulate right now. The arrival plans will be for students who come in on the van or on the bus. If they are in first grade or in a special education classroom, they will go right to their classrooms. If they're an ELL student 1 or 2, they will also go right to their classrooms. And we have plenty of staff on hand that are going to help escort them to those places. When they go to their spaces that they'll be working in, they will walk by a table where there'll be breakfast for them to take, a grab and go breakfast if they choose. And then they'll go right to their classrooms. Kindergarten students, depending on which class they're in for kindergarten, have 3 different waiting areas. And one is on the ramp, one is out front of the building, and one is down the kind of the pathway bound by my office, for those of you that know Stanley. And for the kindergartners, we are planning on having a kind of a rope with some pretty colored tape in 6 feet distances, so that they can kind of get that where they need to stand and get ready to go in for the day. I think that helps. Dismissal is still TBD. We're still working on that. When will the hour-to-hour class schedule be established so parents can try? I'm not sure I understand that question. When will the hour-to-hour class schedule be established so parents can try to work around the kids' log on times? Oh, I see, for the remote learning weeks. Like I said, we're still building class schedules, and that means that we have to build the specialist schedule based upon the number of class schedules. So we're working on those. Once we have that established, teachers will send out a grid, just like I showed you the example schedule. They'll send that out. I know it's so hard, and we're trying to get things out as timely as we can, but because things are changing so quickly, we're trying to kind of keep up with those. So please be patient. I know I want to be able to give you that information as well, but we will get there. I promise. How will we know where to connect on the first day? Good question. So if your student is remote, that first day of school, teachers will be reaching out prior to the first day of school to set up a time. They'll send emails to families, and they will give you all of that information. I think you, okay. I'm concerned about kindergarten I can't even read. I'm concerned about kindergarten remote week as a working parent. Will the child be doing work the entire school day, trying to figure out if working from home can be done on remote weeks? So, yeah, I mean, I think that they should be expected to kind of have that time set aside for working. There could be, activities online that they could be doing. We have a reading program online, Lexia, that kids may have to log into to do an online reading and answering questions. They could be doing a project in the literacy block where they're building or writing and doing reading during that time independently. So I do think that they will be working per se, and the task calendars are going to give those specifics of what they're going to be doing. So has the district determined when it will make a decision around what happens after 1031? Good question. So we've been talking as a district. We meet pretty frequently, and so we know that based upon the school committee decisions and things that have to be made, we kind of have to start thinking by October, middle of October, October 15th, that timeline. That's where we're thinking that we have to kind of think of, can we start bringing more kids back? Do we need to go all remote? And then Dr. Regan will bring that information and his decision, his thoughts on that to the school committee, who will make the decision. So I think you mentioned the date backwards. After Lawson will start 9/23 and before Lawson on 9/29. So I have to think about that in my head. After Lawson will start. So it depends. So yeah, so if you're talking about kindergarten, yes, after Lawson will start on 9/23 so that we can keep all cohort B students together. You're right, I did say that backwards. So that means that first grade families, if a family has a first grader and a kindergartner, they're coming to school on the same week. And they're not, so that their cohort becomes the same. And so if we end up bringing more kids back, that families' lives aren't disrupted by which week we're on. So that, yes, you're right. And I apologize for speaking backwards. Will remote kids not return to school until the next school year? So no. So I don't know if you're talking about remote students or you're talking about Waltham School online students. So let me clarify the difference between those two. Waltham School online students have committed to being online and remote until January 25th. At that time, I think that you'll be surveyed prior to that around whether you want to send your child back. Actually, it's going to depend on what the rest of the district is doing and where we're at. If your student is in remote, that decision for what's going to happen for November 1st on will happen by the end of October. What is the lunch and recess block of time for the 2nd through 5th graders will be the same time every day? So yes, I would say that the lunch and recess time will be the same time every day, but not every grade will have the same schedule. And the reason why that is because when they come back to school, hopefully sooner than later, their lunch and recess time is going to be based on when their specialists are, how many children will be on the playground. So their at-home time will be the same, but when they come back to school, it may change. And it may not be the same time as other students in 2nd through 5th grade. I hope that answers the question. So I have 2 children. One is hybrid and one is remote. How will I manage getting my 3rd grader set up when his start time of school is 5-minute difference? When we find out the bus route and schedule. So as far as the bus route and schedule go, that's a great question. So I know that they are talking about limiting the number of students on buses because A, we have to for safety reasons, and B, they're determining how many people are actually going to use the buses. So that survey should be coming out from the Parent Information Center and the Transportation Department very soon. As I was told that yesterday when I asked, they should be sending that out in the next few days, I would think. And that's going to determine how many people are on the bus and who's going to be riding the bus, and what that's going to look like. As far as the difference in only being 5 minutes, I would think that if the student is riding on the bus, that they would be leaving earlier. Much earlier than the 8:30 start time for students. I would say practice that I had, what I know Mrs. Walther has in her house, is that she gets one set up a few minutes early, ready to go, gives them something else to do for a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes beforehand that they're doing on the side while they're waiting for that to start. And then she's able to take care of her other little one at home. and also be on meetings with me. So I know that it's been it definitely is a challenge, and we are totally understanding of that. So if you're a couple minutes late, no one's going to be penalized for the for tardiness at this point. We're all in this together, and we're all working as hard as we can. When do they get a break during hybrid remote if they're spending break times with as check-ins with their teacher? So during their remote week, there's going to be a little bit more flexibility in their schedule. So they're going to have tasks that they have to complete during that literacy time, but they're not going to necessarily have to be working the whole 120 minutes of literacy. And then they're not going to be working on a computer that they need to be on at the same time as somebody else. So they'll be able to, be flexible and go outside for 10 minutes or take a snack break and do that throughout the day. So I think once you see the task calendar kind of in its, when it's full, you'll be able to see that it's not going to be as cumbersome as the regular school day would be. Do the remote students have different teachers from the Waltham School Online students? Yes, two totally different schools. Waltham School Online is teachers from across the district teaching at a grade level. So for example, if you have a fourth grade student in Waltham School Online, that teacher could be teacher from, I don't know, a teacher from Fitzgerald that's teaching online this year, and your student could be in that classroom. Or it could be a teacher from, MacArthur, or it could be a teacher from Stanley that's not going to be teaching at Stanley this year. Remote students are going to have Stanley school teachers. Those will be the teachers that have been in the building, unless they're new teachers this year, which we do have a few. So remote students remote Stanley students will be taught by Stanley teachers. When the remote students, yes, they will absolutely have the same teacher remotely, and if we come back, they will have that same teacher here at Stanley. So the reason why it's taking us so long to do the class list to figure out is we want to make sure that we've balanced the classroom. So when we do come back, we'll be able to bring those kids back to this teacher. So yes, good question. Will there be one-on-one feedback from the teacher to a student? I would say most likely, yes. I would think that there would definitely be some written feedback. There would be some verbal feedback. There may be a time that a teacher sets up with a student that because the remote for 2 through 5 is going to be all remote, there may be times that they're going to say, okay, boys and girls, I want you to shut your computer down. I want you to do 20 minutes of independent reading, and I want you to write me a paragraph about that. And, Jen Hacker, please, stay on this call, and we're going to have a reading conference during this time. I definitely see those kinds of things happening. That's exactly what would happen in the classroom, and I can't imagine that it would be any different. Okay. If 2 families in the same class wanted to switch cohorts prior to in-person learning, would this be allowed? Unfortunately, no. There isn't going to be any switching of cohorts. They're based on last names for balance. That those letters are not just a random, hey, we're going to do Lawson. It's literally the halfway point for our district on for numbers. So we're trying to keep it balanced so that one classroom teacher doesn't have 15 kids in the cohort A and 2 kids in cohort B. We're trying to do it that way so that we have that ability. And switching cohorts, unfortunately, based on last name, is definitely not going to be something that we're going to be able to help with, unfortunately. How are parents expected to assist their kids during the school day, particularly for younger ones? So it's really our hope, and I know that this doesn't sound like this is going to sound like you're going to say, how can this even happen? But I can tell you that when we're in school, even the littlest ones are able to work independently when they're here with us. And so our job while they're here with us is to set them up for that when they're at home, and to know that their teacher is going to be checking in twice a day with them, and to say, hey, I'm making sure that you're doing your work when you're home. Those are some of those expectations that we're going to build while they're here with us, or while we're remote with them if it's 2 through 12. I mean, I know it's going to be a challenge, and this is definitely unprecedented times, unfortunately, that we're in. And we're all working together. I would say be very communicative with the teacher, and talk with your child's teacher about um, ways to help at home if you're struggling with that. Mrs. Walther and I are also available. We both have kids at home. I'm not so sure how I'm going to get my 16-year-old son to be online and every day in class, but we have to work on that as well. So I don't think it's just the little ones. I think it's just depends on the student, but I do think knowing teachers are checking in should be helpful. Will there be any opportunities for students on Waltham Public Schools to interact with students in Waltham schools online specifically? So specifically online, probably not. It's going to be two totally separate schools. It's like sending your child to Stanley versus sending your child to Fitzgerald. They wouldn't have too many opportunities to interact in that way. So what percentage of the Stanley opted for Waltham schools online, and will classes be smaller? So I think I think I already talked a little bit about class sizes. They are pretty small. The cohorts are smaller, but the class sizes are still remaining about the same. We may have lost a section at a grade level because students opted online. I don't know specifically the percentage. We've had some flux in, flux out, so I don't necessarily know. It's about 20-25% across the district. Can a kindergartner use an iPad on the remote week? Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Can kids buy lunch from the cafeteria and get the curbside kit for the week they are home? Without a doubt, absolutely, yes. So when they're in school, they will have an opportunity to buy school lunch and have breakfast here at school if that's the case. And the next week for when they're home, parents would just have to pick up the curbside kit. And yes, for example, just so you know, the kits are going to have 10 meals. They'll include like a half gallon of milk, fresh fruits and vegetables, and other grocery items. So it's not just going to be like, a lunch sandwich, 6 sandwiches and those kinds of things. So it will actually be a little bit more like going to the store and getting your groceries. What devices are compatible with software for kindergarten? Can we use an old laptop or do we need a tablet? No, I'm pretty sure that so we're going to use Seesaw for our kindergarten online. That's the website that we're going to use. I'm pretty sure you can probably use an old laptop. I don't think you need to have a tablet. We can use tablets and laptops, but I don't think there's anything that's going to be that difficult that we will have to use that. You can't use either. You could use a laptop. All right. My child is going to be into 4th grade fully remote. Will we know who her teachers will be and when we will receive? Yes. So again, fully remote students, the teachers are going to be reaching out next week, and they will be able to find out more specifically things from the teacher and the schedules. The schedules may not come out until the following week, that Monday or Tuesday, the 14th or 15th. Again, like I mentioned before, we're still building those. And so the quicker I can get those things out to the teachers, the quicker they can build their class schedules. But it's all going to depend on coverage and things that we need to provide so that teachers have the opportunity to have check-ins with students. All right. So children will be eating lunch in the classrooms because they are 6 feet apart and because we are following those CDC guidelines. It is okay that they are going to eat in the classrooms. We are going to ask that teachers open their windows during the lunch block. We do have great ventilation in our building. It's a newer building, so we're getting a lot of fresh air in and a lot of fresh air out. Every the air comes in and goes out quite a few times in a span of an hour. So having them be 6 feet apart is really helpful for the ability to eat lunch in the classrooms. That being said, as soon as they finish lunch, they will leave the classroom so that the custodians will be able to come in and they'll be able to sanitize the classroom, spray it down, and then the kids will go out either to recess or for a mask break, and they will be able to come back to a sanitized classroom. So Right now, kids are going to enter the building and go directly to class when they come in the morning, other than the kindergartners. And yes, they will be in line 6 feet apart, and we will have um, some things that they can use in order to see the visuals of 6 feet apart. Um, if we are not using the registers in the CAF, how are students paying for lunch? So teachers every day will use, we're using Google Forms so that they will take their lunch count and send that to tell the cafeteria. We'll be using the old fashioned names of lists on a sheet, and they're going to check off who ordered lunch and who didn't. And that way the CAF ladies can put it in at the end of the day. So do cohorts pertain to the remote students or just when they go in person? So good question. Cohorts, we're going to call them cohorts from the very beginning, but when they're remote 2 through 5, they will be in school every week. They won't have they'll always have their teacher remotely, but the second week they'll be doing more work independently, so we can get them ready for that out and in kind of model. So there's been a few specific special education questions wanting to know if staff will be calling parents. Yes, so the special education, we just kind of finalized some lists today. If you have any specific concerns about your student, please email us directly. Yeah, try not to use the chat. We just want to keep your privacy and your child's privacy off the public chat, but we just want you to be able to email us if you have any questions, but we can certainly find out the answers that you need. When or how will we find out if our K student can take the bus? So we are not sure how far out the busing situation, how the distance wise for what they're going to provide busing for. Stay tuned. There's going to be a survey coming out from the transportation department about that. Technology cheat sheet. I love that idea. Will there be a technology cheat sheet so we know all the programs and how to log on? So yes, so I am certain that teachers will be emailing all of that login information and all of those websites and things for your student, so you have that ability to figure it out, and you can always email the teacher and they'll be happy to help you figure those things out if you're stuck in the moment. So drop off is still live at Stanley. Yes, we are dropping students off. They will get out. They will enter. They will enter through the front door. First graders are entering through the front door. They're going to go up the main stairwell, and we'll have plenty of teachers there on the first day to kind of help them through that, because up at the top of that stairwell is where they're going to do their breakfast pickup, and then they'll go right to their classroom to eat. So. Sorry, I'm just trying to read these questions. What will the kindergarten day look like? Will they have shared toys, centers, etc.? I am doubtful they will have that this year. So as of right now, and things are changing. So there were things that said that there was a lot of, like we had to have shared, we couldn't have shared toys, and we couldn't have any shared materials. And as the CDC is kind of changing their thoughts on materials and things like that, we're kind of looking at things a little differently. However, that being said, we're really not going to let kids per se like try on and play in the dramatic play area with costume changes. Those things aren't going to be able to happen. Will they be able to share toys? Probably not in the very beginning. But they will be able to have their kind of own bin with their own materials that they'll be working on. And to play with, and so they won't be shared, but they will have their own bin that they can use to play with. Will the teacher be the same for hybrid weeks for K? Absolutely. The teacher will say the same for hybrid and remote for K. So if your student is in Mrs. Walther's kindergarten class, I keep using you, Erica, sorry. The students are in Mrs. Walther's kindergarten class for their in person, they will also have Mrs. Walther for their check-in remotely. Oh, great question. What do you have planned to help kindergartners socially and emotionally? We are doing such deep work with our social emotional thinking. So we are we are utilizing our school adjustment counselors and our building experts. We have spent a lot of time in the last year, and now especially with COVID, thinking about, what are the social emotional needs of students at this point. And we're reading a lot of books, and we're sharing a lot of information with students, and we are really in tune with how to look at how to understand what a student is thinking and feeling at this point, and acknowledging that. Our teachers have been learning and working with other trainers around social emotional well-being. And we've been practicing mindfulness in our own social emotional ways for our staff. And so I think a lot of these practices that we're talking about and we're sharing with staff are going to translate into the classroom so that kids can have that place where they can feel safe and comfortable. So what happens if someone tests positive in a class? Would the whole class need to quarantine? So the answer to that is yes. If someone tests positive in your class, teacher or student, families will be notified that someone in the class has tested positive and that you must quarantine for the amount of days or have a negative COVID test. We're not recommending that you have a test. We're just saying that that's the plan, and the whole class would have to quarantine, for that. I can't remember now if it's 10 or 14 days based on the new regulations. I have to look that up again. But that'll all come out in the district plans and protocols. So there was a few questions, confirmation that in person would be less than 12 students per class. Absolutely, there will be less than 12 students in a cohort in a class. So will a whole class for Mrs. Walther have less than 12 students? No, but when they're in person, there will definitely be less than 12 students. So in cohort, so for example, I'm gonna just say Mrs. Walther's class has 16 students. Cohort A may have 9 and cohort B may have 7. So 9 students would attend one week and 7 would attend the next, and vice versa. So, yep. So as far as free and reduced lunch, yes, free and reduced lunch still applies. If students receive free and reduced lunch, you do have to fill out the forms. Those went out in my letter to families. There were attachments in that email that had the free and reduced lunch forms for families to fill out. So students without Chromebooks, it says there's lots of questions about when students will get Chromebooks who are without them. Again, we're working on that. They're at a premium right now, so we are trying to make sure that we get them we're prioritizing the students who are online primarily, and then we're working backwards. But please email and let us know if you're in need of a device so that we can get you on our list to get back to. So we have some questions specifically about certain students, specifically if they're in a sub-separate class. Please reach out to us via email so we can talk about your specific student, because each student has a different profile, and depending on what that 70% of time looks like, you may think that they're 70, but we need to actually talk about what that means. So please reach out to us for individual questions about students for special education. So our teacher's going to be using Google Classroom for online meetings and check-ins. So students in grades 2 through 12 will be using Google Classroom. Students in pre-K through grade 1 will be using Seesaw. And that is the platform that we're going to be using for those grades. So I guess there were a few questions about a foreign language. We do not instruct students in a foreign language at the elementary level. I think it starts in middle school in the Waltham Public Schools. So questions about free and reduced lunch availability on the remote weeks. Yes, so that lunch kit option is also available for free or reduced lunch students, and those kits will be free, or they will be at the reduced price for students, and it would be their regular reduced price per day. So if it's reduced to $1 a day, which I don't know if it is, I don't know what the reduced price is, but then it would be $5 instead of 15. Are 3-year-olds required to wear a mask? What happens if they can't leave it on? That's a great question. So we are asking that all students and staff in the building wear their masks. We understand that there are going to be students who have a really hard time with it, and we are going to work with those students on it. So I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to work really hard to get students to wear their masks so we can keep them and others safe. So if you can practice at home, that would be really helpful. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we do have translators on this call. It is 8 o'clock. I will take one more question because it's an important one, and I want to, but I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I know that people have lots of questions, and I know we didn't get to them all, and I apologize. But again, feel free to reach out to us. But I am going to take this last question, and then if Mrs. Walther wants to chime in, I see her wanting to say something, I'll let her. So are kids required to stay 6 feet apart on the playground? Again, they're kids, and we know that they're not going to be able to do that. However, they are going to have their masks on during recess. So we're not going to worry about it as much, but if they're giving each other hugs and they're trying to play tag, we're going to ask them not to do that. Again, we understand that they're kids, and we know that it's not going to be as easy as it looks. But we've got this, everybody. We're going to get to it. And lastly, I'm going to answer this one. Do we recommend a mask holder? We actually have them. Our PTO has been amazing and generous. Thank you, Carla, and all of my PTO board members who might be listening. Our PTO bought us, and I'm going to model it for you, bought us mask lanyards, and they attach to the mask. So it'll just be easy, and they are breakaway, so there's no chance of choking or anything like that. But they are here at school all ready to go. So we will certainly be distributing those as soon as students get here. So I want to thank you, Mrs. Walther. Was there anything else you wanted to add lastly before we close?
No, I was just going to say that there are still a few more questions, but I have noted them all, so we will get answers to everyone who asked.
Great. All right. Well, thank you all very much, and we really appreciate you tuning in. And we hope that you're safe and well and healthy, and we really can't wait to see your kids soon. Take care. Have a good night.